What's going on, guys? This is the Durf, and I want to welcome you to my fourth installment going through S tier weapons that make their rounds in my inventory and my character on a regular basis. Today I'm going to be covering all of the solar weapons that I truly believe are S tier and are worth your time to go out and get them if you don't already have them. Solar is probably one of the most debated, maybe even argued for classes in all of Destiny. There are so many weapons that theoretically in the right hands could be considered S tier that there simply isn't enough time to go through every single one of them. So I've broken this down as minimally as possible to give you a good variety of energy and heavy weapons that if you don't have or haven't tried in a while, with the addition of Prismatic, with the new season coming out here shortly, it might be time to refamiliarize yourself or get reacquainted with them, or possibly if you haven't found time to level them up and put them into some builds that you like running, this is your sign to dust those off from the shelves of your inventory and get out there and start working. If you do find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I will not have any dim links for any of this. I'm going to specifically be focusing on the weapons that I've chosen, the roles that I've chosen, why it might be a good idea for you to check them out or try them out. But you can always give me feedback in the comments, and you can for sure get at me on my Discord. I will have that link in the description. But this is going to be one of those videos. It's probably going to be one of my longer ones simply because solar is so much fun to use. I don't care what class you are, Titan, Warlock, Hunter, everybody loves solar. It's just fun watching the enemies of the Traveler go up in flames. So if you're a fan of solar, this is definitely 100% the video for you, because you're going to see a lot of stuff getting blown up. You're going to see a lot of stuff catching fire, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So I'm going to take you guys into the Breakneck mission just to showcase a little bit of the potency of all of these weapons. This is probably going to be the longest video of the series. So bear with me. It's going to have more weapons on this than probably any of the other 5 videos in any single one of them. So this is a fun class. This is a fun element to use in virtually every activity. And when you have an artifact that's got some really good options as far as barrier stunning and enhanced damage for solar weapons, virtually all of these are going to become viable and meta at any given time in any given season because of that. So without further ado, I'm going to log us into the Breakneck mission and we're going to go have some fun. Let's go. Alrighty, kicking off the solar S tier weapons on my list, Tyranny of Heaven. A combat bow that is a lightweight frame, so you move faster when this weapon is equipped. You can get this from the Last Wish raid, so when you see that in rotation, if you don't have it, make sure you start farming that first encounter with a group of friends and get it crafted. You can put Dragonfly and Incandescent on it. It's got a 588 draw time, which is very quick. It's also got the Explosive Pack, which is this weapon gains bonus stability and reload speed when activating a grenade ability. Healing grenades and grenade final blows grant additional stacks of this bonus. You can also, once you got it crafted, put Tension Weapon Mod on, which will decrease the draw time and increase the accuracy. Lightweight frames, for those who don't know or aren't aware or maybe just didn't catch on to it, they don't have super high accuracy. The fact that the accuracy is almost at an 80 on this weapon, being a lightweight frame bow, it's not normal. The fact that you can move faster, you can light the world on fire, you can fire from a ridiculous distance, and still you spread Scorch, You can get the Dragonfly going. And, I mean, look at it. I just got through those 2 waves of enemies with virtually no effort. To further prove my point, here we go. 18,000 from basically across the entire map from where I'm at right now, at least. I have seen this in Crucible. It's not something I probably typically recommend unless there's going to be a situation where you're going to have an artifact mod buff the potency of this a little bit. But when bows are in rotation for the artifact mods, you know, for barrier stunning capabilities, this is one of those bows where it's a lot of fun to use. It is super easy to use. Again, it's not going to hit like a truck, but if you are using this to help clear the way, virtually a couple of shots will clear a battlefield in virtually no time. So if you're running a solar surge activity, this weapon becomes even more potent. So Tyranny of Heaven, if you don't have it or haven't tried it out or haven't crafted it and gotten good rolls on it, I encourage you to go ahead and dedicate the time to get it. On the list, Polaris Lance Scout Rifle. A 150 round per minute scout rifle is a staple in a lot of Guardians inventories and regular gameplay usage all across the galaxy. It has a Zen moment given trait, which causing damage with this weapon reduces recoil and flinch over time, and its intrinsic trait, the perfect fifth, precision hits return ammo to the mag. Landing 4 precision hits loads a delayed solar explosive round that scorches targets for your next shot. So this is one of those weapons that's very easy to take into GMs and end game level content, even when it is not the surge, because you have the ability to self-scorch any target that you dump enough rounds into, for lack of a better way to put it. So this is a perfect weapon to take into a GM where you're going to be firing from a distance and regularly being pinned down. It is also a great weapon to take into Crucible because of its ridiculously high range and impact and stability. And the Calus precision kills create an elemental damage explosion on top of it. So all good things for this weapon. This is probably one of the weapons that doesn't really need much introduction. I'm going to take some time real quick. There you go. That's 1 round. There you go. And there's your solar explosive. And because it's a kinetic ammo weapon, you're pretty much never going to run out of ammo. And if you are getting kills regularly with this thing, you know, it's going to be constantly just decimating the battlefield. So if you haven't dusted off Polaris Lance in a while, you haven't picked it up from the Monument of Lost Light, if you haven't tried it out in a GM or a higher end game style content, this is a great option to put in the mix for any solar build or any build where you're looking for a good scout rifle with a good sight picture where you're not completely zoomed in and not able to see the rest of the battlefield. Polaris Lance is extremely fun to use. You don't need to be the most accurate shooter in the world, but if you are and you take this thing into PvP, you can absolutely ruin some Guardians' days. Next up on the list, Sunshot hand cannon. Now, this weapon probably doesn't need much of an introduction. You can see it on the screen. It looks cool. It's a 150 round per minute hand cannon. It's got fantastic range, excellent stability, very good reload speed and handling. One of its weapon perks, Sunblast, targets defeated with Sunshot explode in solar energy, scorching other nearby targets. And its intrinsic trait, Sunburn. The weapon fires explosive rounds and highlights targets that take damage from Sunshot. Once you get the Calus, it bumps up your range to where you see it on the screen now, 71 and 65. This weapon is a staple in pretty much every Guardian's inventory. It hasn't gotten a lot of use in endgame content as of late, simply because hand cannons have not been as meta in PvP because of the lack of ability to stun champions. But I'm telling you, once this weapon gets back on an artifact, hand cannons I mean in general, this weapon is going to be in pretty much everyone's go-to for solar surge style activities or solar builds. This weapon hits like a truck, can fire safely over long distances, and it just looks really cool ripping through enemies with 1, 2, or 3 shots. And you see double damage numbers coming off. That's from the perk on the weapon that I read to you earlier. So this perk, the Sunshot, is, I mean, second to none, the most unique hand cannon probably in the game. And it is one of the best, if not the best, solar option weapons to take with you into virtually every activity that has an ad-dense population. So if you haven't unlocked the Calus yet, you haven't even picked up a Sunshot yet, or if you haven't dusted it off in a while, go ahead and refamiliarize yourself with it. Go ahead and pick it up and start getting to work, and hopefully soon enough in some future season we'll be able to use this thing in virtually every activity once again. Next up on the list, and I already know I'm going to get some good feedback on this one, the fusion rifle, known affectionately as the Toaster, is up in my S tier list for solar weapons. Its perk: Shield Disorient, Energy Match Shield Explosion, disorients nearby combatants. The intrinsic trait: Charge Shot. Hold down the trigger to charge up a tracking shot that explodes and burns on impact. And oh, by the way, if that wasn't enough, once you get the Catalyst Masterwork, faster charge time or draw time when surrounded by combatants. Defeating a target spreads Scorch to those nearby. More powerful combatants and opposing guardians cause Scorch in a larger radius. This weapon makes it into my S tier, as it probably will many other Guardians S tier lists, simply because you can hip fire this weapon and it will always hit a target that's standing in front of you. It is extremely user-friendly to use. It is one of the most hated weapons in all of Crucible, not because it is impossible to beat, but when you get picked off by a Jotunn, or a Toaster as we call it, you just feel like you could have moved a little bit faster. Doesn't have the worst reload speed. It doesn't have, the greatest handling, but a lot of people that are not that great at PvP, and sometimes people that are having a tough day in a PvP lobby, such as myself, will put this on and have a little bit of fun. It is extremely satisfying to watch the solar explosions, and once fusion rifles make it back onto a seasonal artifact, despite what people will say in the comments all over social media about this weapon, PvP lovers and PvE lovers alike will regularly have this back in their inventory. So if you haven't gotten this weapon, if you have not ever used this weapon, if you have never finished the Catalyst, let this be the sign to get the Catalyst done, get the weapon in your rotations, and go out to Altars of Sorrow or your favorite strike in a non-sweaty environment and just get used to how it is and have a little bit of fun. Next up on the list, a weapon that gained extreme popularity barely long ago, the Still Hunt Sniper Rifle. Upon its release, everyone and their mother started loving sniper rifles. It is a special ammo sniper rifle, so the ammo economy is fantastic in this weapon. Its trait: Sharpshooter. This weapon gains passive bonuses to target acquisition, aim down sight speed, and flinch resistance. The bonus increases when this weapon's super mode is active. Golden Munitions. The magazine gains bonus ammo whenever a golden gun shot is acquired. So, those two pair with the intrinsic trait below, Cade's Retribution. Pick up orbs of power or land precision hits to charge this weapon's super bar. Once full, long press your reload to fire golden gun shots. There are videos all over YouTube dedicated to showing the DPS potential of this weapon and its rotational validity in major endgame content activity. Unfortunately, it kind of had to take a backseat this past season because sniper rifles were no longer on the meta board in terms of the artifacts. So it didn't have the ability to stun champions or take advantage of any additional buffs like it did when it first came out. However, one thing I can show you right now is how to use the charge shot. So I'm going to start the encounter. I'm going to rally to the flag, and then I'm going to activate it. So I'm going to fire right there. And you can see 162, 117, and that's for a non-precision shot. Here's a precision shot, 60,000 from a large distance. The unfortunate thing about this weapon is that it got a big nerf shortly after its release by Bungie, and even though it still hits like a truck, some folks still haven't gotten over it. But in the event that the artifact in a future season does support sniper rifles, this is one of the best sniper rifles still in the game. It outperforms the Supremacy. It outperforms other special ammo weapon sniper rifles, and it still sounds amazing to use. So if you've been looking for a good exotic sniper rifle that doesn't take up the Whisper of the Worm slot, because you don't want to use a sniper rifle in your heavy slot, you can pair this with a variety of other legendary ammo heavy weapon options, and your DPS rotations are going to be insane. The best boss I can tell you to use this with would probably be the boss from Warlord's Ruin. There are a lot of different options to take on that boss, but 162,000, look at that, 236,000. Back when this thing first came out, it was hitting at almost 800,000 on some bosses. So when you factor in other methods of dealing damage to a raid or a dungeon boss that you can successfully aim and hit critical shots on, I mean, this thing, it's still a menace, clearly. For a special ammo weapon to have that kind of damage numbers, there's nothing else like it. But it has cooled down a bit from its inception. It's still 100% worth the time to go out and level up and get used to using. Next up on the list, I present to you the legendary version of Sunshot, affectionately known as the Bane. This hand cannon has 140 rounds per minute, 99 recoil direction, very good impact, decent range, great stability, good handling, and very good reload speed. You can get this from the King's Fall raid. I recommend once that's in rotation to farm the final encounter orcs if you have a decent fire team. You can put explosive payload and incandescent on this. It also has runneth over, which is reloading near allies, overflows the magazine. And once you craft it, you can add on a tactical, which grants increased reload speed and handling. Or if you just prefer to use a loader mod on your arms, you can always just put on a backup mag. But honestly, this thing is, I'm going to say it's as fun as using Sunshot. It's another weapon, but situationally, it hasn't been as meta, except in general activities, in a long time. I think it reloads faster than Sunshot, quite honestly. It's got really great splash damage for clearing a room. And if you love Sunshot, but you don't want to waste your exotics, your single exotic weapon on the Sunshot itself, this is an excellent alternative. You can put this as your main ad clear weapon, still have your exotic available for the other two slots in your build, and you can still clear a battlefield. So any add dense activity and or raid where you're not going to be seeing champions, or maybe you have other ways of dealing with champions, but you just want a really solid ad clear weapon that can, light stuff on fire and you like watching things explode, this is the weapon for you. So if you haven't gotten around to the King's Fall raid, if you haven't bothered to craft it or get enough patterns to make this weapon your own and fit it into some of your builds, this is your sign. You can rapid fire this and keep it on target with relative ease. You can see that each round it packs a punch because you get that bonus damage from explosive payload. So that is the Bane, as it is affectionately called, from the King's Fall raid. If you're looking for a great hand cannon that's got really good reload time on it and pretty decent ammo economy, and you don't want to use Sunshot as your exotic weapon, this is the #1 best alternative to Sunshot with very, very similar mechanics and play style to it. Next up is a weapon that I've only featured in one video, and it wasn't even for a solar build, the Timeworn Wayfarer. You can get this by turning in engrams to failsafe at the helm. It's got the Radiolaria transposer. Rapid final blows cause targets to explode into a pool of Radiolarian fluid. You can craft, or you can roll this with Precision Instrument and Strategist. If you have not tried this scout rifle, I recommend to get a good roll of it and then take it into Crucible. This is a craftable weapon. I don't remember if I made that clear or not, but this essentially is a legendary version, solar version of Dead Man's Tail, which is a high aggressive frame, which is high damage, high recoil scout rifle. So it may not blow your socks off with the rounds per minute or the magazine or the recoil direction, but you can absolutely two-tap Guardians with this weapon if you get 2 precision hits from a moderate distance. So I don't recommend this weapon for, you know, your favorite PvE activity, as its main shine comes from using it in Crucible, but the amount of single target damage you can do from a PvP standpoint is very, very good. It is not the most satisfying to watch as far as the reload, but given the fact that in PvP you're not seeing enemies every 10 seconds in your face, you're not seeing a group of enemies always following you around like you will in PvP, the reload is not going to matter. You're going to be shooting this weapon from a very safe distance, and when you throw on a loader mod onto your arms, your arms armor, this thing becomes a virtual 2-tap monster in PvP, which leaves you the ability to put an exotic on for your kinetic, or if you get that heavy ammo regularly, your heavy weapon. But you can see this thing does hit like a truck for what it is, but in PvP, I promise you, if you've not tried this thing out, this thing is a monster. And you can put perks on here like Strategist and Precision Instrument, which will boost your ability regen for your class ability, and dealing sustained damage increases precision damage. So Timeworn Wayfarer definitely makes the S tier in my book for solar, but only in a PvP situation. Next up on my list of S tier solar weapons, the BXR-55 Battler. You can get this weapon from running Dares of Eternity, so if you want a very low sweat environment to get a premier weapon in the entire game, go farm Dares of Eternity and get this weapon unlocked for yourself. You can craft this thing with Demolitionist and Incandescent. You do not need to put Arrowhead Break on this thing to get the recoil above 90. You can put a counterbalance on because the magazine quantity of 36 and a 450 round per minute weapon is simply amazing. You can use this thing, as I have it crafted right now, for PvE activities. You can also switch out Incandescent for a more PvP friendly perk, And it's also got the hot swap, which is switching to this weapon while you are damaged strongly increases its handling for a short duration. So you switch to this weapon after someone hits you in PvP, you can absolutely fire back in less than half a second. And by half a second, I mean like 2/100ths of a second. It's virtually no time at all. But with Incandescent and Demolitionist, you are basically getting your grenade back every single, I don't know, 8-10 seconds on a heavy ad activity, and you're just leveling the battlefield with burning fire. So if you haven't checked this out, this is a spin-off of the Halo rifle from back in the day, those of you who are fans of Halo. But you can see I am rapid firing this weapon from a very moderate distance, and I'm not having any problems just cooking the battlefield or dealing, you know, good precision damage or even hitting a target accurately. So BXR Battler, I probably didn't even need to spend this much time talking about it. Most people that watch the BXR instantly love it, but that is where you get it, as Dares of Eternity. So go start farming that if you are a little bit confused on if there's any weapons that you don't have to completely sweat for or go into a raid that can dominate in virtually all aspects of the game. This is your sign to get this weapon. And when it's on the artifact perk list, or the artifact mod list, like it was this past season and the season before, it becomes an absolute endgame monster. Next up on the list is the Calus mini tool. Now you can get this from the exotic rotator mission Presage, a 900 round per minute submachine gun that has very high stability and good reload speed. This thing is an absolute monster to use. You can craft it how you want, but you can put threat detector on and greatly increases reload, stability, and handling when targets are in close proximity. And you can put incandescent on, and oh, by the way, to access final blows with this weapon while your super is full, grant a bonus to strength and discipline for a modded duration. This weapon, when it is in rotation for meta as far as artifact perks go, is second to none. You can throw on a counterbalance if you want, which I have, but the magazine at 42, you get superb handling. It's a Midas synergy weapon, which means you move faster with this weapon equipped, and also grants additional speed benefits when you have the Mida multi-tool equipped, which is in your kinetic slot and is a exotic scout rifle. So I don't really need to do much more talking on this. I'm just going to level the playing field real quick. I love the sight on this. I love the way that it handles. You can see threat detector is active in the lower left hand screen. You can see I am just laying waste to everything that's in front of me. Again, because it's a submachine gun, you're not going to get crazy DPS numbers. So if you're going into a GM, this might not be the weapon for you, but virtually anything else, including regular nightfalls, overthrows, certain onslaught activities, of course, Dares of Eternity, and really anything in which you want to be able to move fast, level the battlefield, watch the world catch on fire. I mean, if you don't get even a little bit of a smile from watching everything just go up in flames from this, I'm not sure what will make you smile at all. So if you haven't gone and been farming the exotic mission Presage, that is the place to get this weapon. And I highly recommend, when it is in rotation, if you don't have it or you don't have all the red borders to craft it yourself, just take an evening and farm the mission, learn the mission. There's other good loot you can get from that exotic mission, so it won't be a total waste of your time if you don't get it every single time that you run it. Next up on my list, a weapon that needs virtually no introduction to the savvy veterans out there. PvP and PvE lovers alike love the Ammit Ar2. What I have on the screen right here is my PvE god roll, so to speak. It comes with Ambitious Assassin and Incandescent, 450 rounds per minute and 100 recoil with very good range, good stability, good handling, and quick reload speed make this an absolute menace in virtually any PvE activity. It has taken a backseat in some Guardians inventories simply because auto rifles are not on this season's artifact, but if they do make a comeback and put auto rifles on for stunning champs, expect to see this a lot more. For the PvP version of this, you can craft it with dynamic sway reduction and tap the trigger, which makes this a virtual laser beam with almost no recoil whatsoever and no reason to have your thumb on the joystick holding it. But as you're going to see here, I'm going to level this battlefield with virtually no effort at all, standing right here, and you can see the scorch effects, the satisfying fire that you see, just burning everything alive. And you can see I'm staying on point. I'm having no problems hitting my precision hits from a moderate distance away. So if you haven't had time or you haven't gotten enough red borders to craft this, I encourage you, be on the lookout at Zur and at Banshee. They occasionally have this in rotation. It was also part of a Renaissance quest when people were unlocking the Enclave for the first time. Some folks took this weapon, others took another weapon. I forget what that is off the top of my head, so I'm sure someone watching this portion of the video is going to know what I'm talking about. So you can't get it from an exotic rotator mission like some of the other ones that I have, but when you see this weapon, if you've got deep sight harmonizers to use, this weapon is 100% worth every deep sight harmonizer you will ever use. 100% of the time, probably more so than every other weapon that I could put on any list. It is that good, and it is that universally good in both PvP and PvE. So the Ammit Ar2, if you can't get it crafted, but you get a really good roll, it is absolutely worth hanging on to until you can finally craft it and eventually enhance these traits. On my list, the Apex Predator, a Last Wish raid legendary rocket launcher that you can craft with things like reconstruction and bipod. So you can load 4 rockets into one magazine when this is fully reloaded, and rapid fire, again, for a rocket launcher that fires 20 rounds per minute at a boss from virtually any distance and get maximum damage and DPS out of it. I recommend also putting on impact casing. It doesn't come with a tracking module round, but being an adaptive frame, it's got very good handling, as you can see. Good stability, very good velocity, and you don't need a lot of blast radius to be able to take care of enemies in a general vicinity. I recommend this when you're doing like lost sectors, raids, certain endgame activities where solar is the surge and you don't have an extremely swirly boss. And to further top it off, you can put on tactical weapon mod, which grants increased reload speed and handling. So if you haven't farmed Last Wish raid, yet another weapon that makes an S tier appearance, it's 100% worth your effort to get a fire team together when Last Wish is in rotation and get the red borders so that you can craft this and have virtually one of, if not the best solar rocket launcher in the game. And I know I'm going to get some flack for saying that, but it is what I truly believe. The proof is in the pudding. You can see in the lower left-hand corner, I've got 4 rounds loaded into this magazine. I'm only going to clear out a few enemies here just so you can see how it fires. But once you get this, if you haven't dusted it off in a long time, or you haven't leveled it up so that you can craft it, I recommend doing so because it is worth the time and effort and the stress of finding a fire team. And by the way, because bipod is one of the perks when you reload this thing, you get at least 2 shots back to back. So Apex Predator, if you know, you know. If you don't know, we want you to know. This is a great rocket launcher to have in your back pocket in virtually any activity. Next up on my list with the heavy weapons, Whisperer of the Worm. Longtime fans of this weapon will tell you that it became even more fun to use once it became craftable. You can craft this thing virtually however you want. I've got mine with field prep. You get the whispered breathing, and the intrinsic trait is white nail. 4 higher base precision damage, rapidly landing 3 precision hits will refill this magazine. This is a very popular weapon to use on the final boss of King's Fall. Virtually the the target area that you're shooting, it's not a mile wide literally, but it sure feels like a mile wide, and you can hold the trigger down with the rapid fire setting enabled in your options menu and land every hit as a precision hit. And it has higher base precision damage than basically any sniper rifle out there. This does compete directly with the Still Hunt, but it does have equally good ammo economy for a heavy sniper rifle to begin with. So I'm not going to be able to show you all of the benefits of this thing in this controlled environment, but so you're just going to have to take my word on it. But it is, you know, the handling is legit. It's not too slow, and you can see 197,000. I'm going to pick this guy off real quick. Boom. 135,000 without a rapid fire precision hit. You know, so during certain activities that don't involve swirly bosses, I 100% recommend this as a DPS weapon. Specifically in the King's Fall raid is an excellent time to bust this thing out. And in certain slower moving activities, like maybe a master sector where you get bonus damage to a sniper rifle, this is an excellent option for any Guardian out there that's looking for a great exotic solar weapon. It's 100% worth the resources it's going to take to obtain this from you know, both the Enclave and the Whisper mission. Yes, you will have to get through the Whisper mission when it's on the exotic rotator, but make no mistake, the stress you're going to experience during the regular and the legendary version of that exotic mission is well worth it once you finally get this thing crafted. You can see the ammo economy that I had. I didn't have any problems clearing out 2 waves of those enemies. So once you put a harmonic reserves mod on as well on your armor, you're going to have a lot of rounds to use. So you can easily proc over 1 million damage, especially on the Taken King, in 1 round of DPS, and you will get more than 1 as well. So Whisper of the Worm, if you are not a sniper rifle lover, but you are thinking about picking up a couple of options to play around with, this is one of them. It is absolutely worth the sweat. List a weapon that a lot of Guardians watching this that are savvy veterans were waiting to see, the Lament sword. Now, I am not an avid sword user, but I can tell you there are certain instances where this weapon is 100% needed. It can store a ridiculous amount of ammo, and it's got various ways to increase damage against enemies. Tireless Blade, sword ammo granted for every other powered sword kill, revved consumption, damaging a combatant heals the wielder, increases damage and adds shield piercing to all attacks with Banshee's Wail. Gain stacks while dealing damage with revved attacks. Additional stacks increase the damage and damage resistance of heavy attacks. So the way this works, there's a little bit of a mechanic. You go through a couple of light attacks. Actually 3 specifically. And then you bust out the heavy, and it increases your heavy damage. The best boss to use this on, bar none, is going to be Crota. You can deal a ridiculous amount of damage, more damage than you can your favorite machine gun, Microcosm, simply because of the rev damage that you can do to Crota. So if you haven't finished the quest from Banshee, because that's where you get it from, I highly recommend using Lament in certain situations, or if you are an avid sword lover, you gotta have this in your repertoire. Alrighty, rounding out my S tier solar weapons list, Dragon's Breath Exotic Rocket Launcher. It comes with perks, high octane, igniting nearby targets partially replenishes fuel. This weapon refills itself from reserves upon gaining maximum fuel. So essentially auto reloading, for lack of a better way to put it. The intrinsic trait, composite propellant, rockets embed themselves in struck targets and periodically eject incendiary fuel that inflicts scorch. The longer this weapon goes without firing, the more fuel the next rocket contains. So it stacks 5 times. It doesn't tell you that, but it is 5 times. The Dragon's Breath Calus, this weapon replenishes its fuel faster. Defeating targets with this weapon causes them to periodically drop fire sprites, which give you ability energy back. This weapon is the most satisfying weapon to use, especially when you can embed this thing into a boss and just watch the boss spew flames in all directions, damaging enemies that might be around them. I'm not sure if there's a more fun rocket launcher to use in the game than this, but when you are rocking a solar class and you put Dragon's Breath on, if you combine this with any of the weapons I had in the energy slot for solar, and then you bust this thing out during DPS phases, I mean, it's fire on top of fire on top of fire. So I'm going to just give you guys a synopsis of it right this second, but when you get to your favorite activity, this is the time to start experimenting with it. I mean, look at it. Just tick damage over tick damage, and all the enemies are gone, but the fire is still there. And I got 4, 5, 6, 7 fire sprites just waiting to be picked up. So this weapon, intrinsically, because it can scorch targets, can stun unstoppable champions. So keep that in mind as well. If you're running an activity where you're going to be facing unstoppable champions, and let's say you don't like other weapons that can stun the unstoppable champions, you can use this in a pinch if you believe it's worth your exotic slot to stun those unstoppable champions, whether that's in a Legend Lost sector, Master Lost sector, a GM, a raid, or whatever. The fact that it can apply enough scorch stacks to eventually ignite a champion makes this thing probably beyond S tier, to be honest, but unbelievable amounts of fun, no doubt. If you don't like watching the world go up in flames in this game, then I don't know what's going to make you happy in life, because there's just something fun about watching the enemies of the Traveler just burn. And you can see, just firing it, the little bit that I have, I was able to get through almost all 3 iterations. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that a 2 for over there? Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so 6 fire sprites just waiting to be picked up. Oh, 1 despawned. But that's the beauty of this weapon, is it can give you ability energy back for every rocket that you use. So the DPS rotation would be, you pull this weapon out, you fire it, which again, I'm out of ammo now. You fire it into a boss, you switch back to your main ad clear weapon, keep clearing ads, and when you, after some time has passed, you pull it back out and it'll be reloaded. You can see composite propellant X5 means you're going to get the highest bonus to scorching and stacked damage that it offers. So if you haven't gotten a hold of Dragon's Breath yet, go and get it. Master the rotation that you can use this for on DPS. Is virtually good for almost every boss out there. It's good in Warlord's Ruin. It's good for Road of Nightmares. It's good for Oryx. It's good for, endgame PvE activities. About the only place I probably wouldn't recommend it for would probably be PvP, because it is a slower firing option and machine guns are just better. But Dragon's Breath is simply awesome. So make sure you get your hands on it and add it to your repertoire. If rocket launchers end up on the meta board for the artifact in future seasons, this weapon is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Alrighty, so that concludes the Solar S tier weapons. Those are absolutely ranked in no particular order, because theoretically all of those weapons at a given time or situation could be considered S tier for really any activity you might find yourself in. Combine that with surges and possible artifact mods in the future, or if you've been used to using them in the past. There were definitely some past seasons where the artifact made a lot of those weapons extremely powerful to use. But I suspect there's going to be some debate on if I should have included this or that, or if I should not have included this or that. And I welcome all of it, because that is, again, once again, I'm saying it, it's the beauty of this game. Everyone can be the kind of player, the kind of element abuser, so to speak, that you want to be. And that is what makes Destiny so community friendly as far as the builds go. So I want to thank you guys for all your support and kind vibes. Just like always, if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and absolutely share it with a Guardian who is looking for some refreshed takes for 2025 on solar weapons. You know, this is going to be one of the videos that I'm going to have to for sure revisit later on in the year, and possibly next year when different seasons and different weapons and things like that come out. But I had a lot of fun making this video. I had a lot of fun explaining why these are considered S tier in my book. And hopefully, you know, it resonated with some of you guys out there, and it found you well. But I appreciate all the support. And the next element I'm going to be doing after this is going to be Arc. So stick around, check it out when it comes out, and let me know what you think on that video too. But until then, thanks guys, take care, and be safe out there.